In the landscape of modern relationships, where advice ranges from the superficial to the manipulative, ancient Stoic philosophy stands as a beacon of wisdom that has endured for over 2 millennia. Founded in Athens around 300 BC by Zeno of Citium and later developed by luminaries such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism offers profound insights into human behavior, ethics, and relationships that remain remarkably relevant today. At its core, Stoicism teaches that virtue, consisting of wisdom, Sophia, courage, Andrea, justice, Dikeiosyne, and temperance, Ophrosine, is the only true good, and that our happiness depends not on external circumstances, but on our internal character. When applied to relationships between men and women, these principles illuminate a path toward connections based on mutual respect, emotional intelligence, and personal accountability. The modern dating landscape is particularly challenging to navigate, with changing social norms, digital communication, and evolving expectations creating a complex terrain. Many men find themselves frustrated, confused, or acting in ways that ultimately undermine the connections they seek to build. Stoicism offers clarity amidst this confusion, not through manipulation tactics or power games, but through authentic character development and ethical behavior. This comprehensive guide explores 9 critical mistakes men often make with women, viewed through the lens of Stoic philosophy. For each problematic behavior, we'll examine why it occurs from a psychological perspective, how it contradicts Stoic principles, the impact it has on relationships, practical Stoic alternatives, ancient Stoic wisdom that addresses the issue, modern applications of these timeless principles. By avoiding these behaviors and embracing their Stoic alternatives, men can cultivate relationships characterized by depth, authenticity, and mutual growth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journals, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. B1. This guide aims to help men do exactly that. 1. Do not attempt to control her choices and freedom. The unstoic approach, control and restriction. One of the most common mistakes men make in relationships is attempting to control women's choices and restrict their freedom. This behavior manifests in various ways: monitoring her communications and social media activity, expressing disapproval of certain friendships or social connections, making demands about her appearance, clothing, or self-expression, creating rules about where she can go and with whom, using emotional manipulation to restrict her independence, becoming overly possessive or territorial about her time and attention, expecting detailed accounts of her whereabouts and activities, making important decisions on her behalf without consultation. These controlling behaviors often stem from insecurity, fear of abandonment, or misguided cultural messages about masculinity and relationships. Some men believe that control equals protection or that restriction demonstrates commitment. Others have internalized the toxic notion that a man's worth is measured by his ability to keep his woman in line. Whatever the source, controlling behavior reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of what healthy relationships entail and runs directly counter to Stoic principles. The Stoic perspective, understanding control and freedom. The dichotomy of control is perhaps the most fundamental Stoic concept. Epictetus opens his Enchiridion handbook with this principle. Some things are within our control, while others are not. He elaborates, within our control are our own opinions, aspirations, desires, and the things that repel us. These areas are quite rightly our concern, because they are directly subject to our influence. Outside our control are such things as what kind of body we have, whether we're born into wealth, and how we are regarded by others. These things are indifferent to us. From a Stoic perspective, attempting to control another person's choices represents a serious error in judgment. It fails to recognize the boundaries of our control and inappropriately tries to extend our domain of influence to include another person's autonomy. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher and statesman, reminds us, "I am not born for one corner. The whole world is my native land." This sentiment applies not only to geographical freedom, but to personal freedom as well. True connection comes not from possession or control, but from two autonomous individuals freely choosing to share their journeys. Furthermore, the Stoic virtue of justice, Dikeiosyne, demands that we treat others fairly and respect their dignity as rational beings. Controlling behavior fundamentally violates this virtue by denying another person's right to self-determination. The impact on relationships. When a man attempts to control a woman's choices and freedom, the relationship suffers profound damage. Trust erodes as surveillance and restrictions communicate suspicion. Resentment builds as autonomy is undermined. Authentic connection becomes impossible as one partner must suppress their true self. The controlling partner becomes increasingly anxious and insecure as they try to maintain an impossible level of control. The relationship becomes defined by power struggles rather than mutual support. Growth, both individual and relational, stagnates in the absence of freedom. The foundation for potential emotional or physical abuse is established. Research in relationship psychology confirms what the Stoics understood intuitively. Relationships thrive on mutual respect for autonomy, not control. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that relationships with high levels of autonomy support showed greater satisfaction, trust, and longevity compared to those characterized by controlling behaviors. The Stoic alternative: cultivating respect for autonomy instead of attempting to control. A man practicing Stoic principles recognizes his partner as an autonomous being with her own will, purpose, and path, focuses on his own character development rather than monitoring her behavior, understands that meaningful relationships are built on trust and mutual respect, not control, communicates concerns openly but without demands or ultimatums, values his partner's growth and independence as essential to a healthy relationship, practices the Stoic virtues of wisdom, understanding the limits of control, and justice, respecting others' autonomy, finds security in his own character rather than in restricting his partner. As Marcus Aurelius advised, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. When feeling the urge to control, remember that true strength lies in self-mastery, not domination of others. Practical application: from control to respect. Scenario: your partner mentions she's reconnecting with an old friend, a man she knew before your relationship, and they're planning to meet for coffee. Unstoic response: demanding details about the friend, prohibiting the meeting, insisting on joining them, or passively aggressively expressing disapproval. Stoic response: acknowledging your internal response, perhaps concern or jealousy, examining its roots, and choosing to trust both your partner and your own worth. You might say, "I appreciate you letting me know about your plans. I hope you enjoy catching up with your friend." Stoic reflection. Later, you might journal about any discomfort you felt, asking yourself, what judgments am I making about this situation? Are these judgments based on evidence or insecurity? Am I attempting to control something outside my domain? How can I focus instead on developing my own character? Stoic practice. The ancient Stoics often used premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils, mentally rehearsing challenging scenarios to prepare for them. A modern application would be to regularly imagine scenarios that might trigger controlling impulses and practice responding with respect for autonomy instead. As Epictetus reminds us, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. True security in relationships comes not from controlling your partner, but from developing a character that doesn't require such control to feel secure. 2. Do not hide behind false rationality to avoid emotions. The unstoic approach: emotional avoidance through logic. A common misconception about Stoicism, and one that many men embrace, is that it advocates suppressing emotions in favor of cold rationality. This misunderstanding leads to problematic behaviors in relationships, dismissing women's emotional responses as irrational or too emotional, using logic as a shield to avoid emotional vulnerability, pretending to be unmoved by emotional situations when actually experiencing strong feelings, intellectualizing relationship issues to avoid addressing the emotional components, mocking or minimizing emotional expression as weakness, refusing to discuss feelings or emotional needs, presenting oneself as purely rational while failing to recognize one's own emotional reactions, using phrases like "you're being irrational" to shut down conversations about feelings. This behavior often stems from discomfort with emotional vulnerability, a discomfort frequently reinforced by social messages that men should be stoic, with a lower cases, in the colloquial sense of being unemotional and detached. Ironically, this approach fundamentally misunderstands true Stoicism. The Stoic perspective, emotions, rationality, and integration. Contrary to popular misconception, Stoicism doesn't advocate suppressing emotions or becoming coldly rational. Rather, it teaches us to understand our emotions, examine their origins, and respond to them with wisdom rather than being ruled by them. Epictetus noted, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This doesn't mean eliminating emotional responses. It means developing awareness of them and choosing our actions wisely. The Stoics distinguish between initial emotional reactions, propathei, or pre-emotions, and developed emotional states, path. They recognize that initial feelings arise automatically and are not under our control. What we can control is how we respond to these initial reactions, whether we endorse them, act upon them, or allow them to develop into full-fledged emotional states that cloud our judgment. Seneca, in his essay on anger, writes, "The best remedy for anger is delay." This advice acknowledges the reality of emotional reactions, while advocating for mindful space between feeling and action. It doesn't say never feel anger, but rather, don't let anger drive your behavior. Modern neuroscience confirms this Stoic insight. Research shows that emotions are integral to decision-making and moral reasoning. Antonio Damasio's studies of patients with damage to emotion-processing brain regions revealed that without emotional input, people become incapable of making even simple decisions. Far from becoming more rational, they become dysfunctional. The impact on relationships. When men hide behind false rationality to avoid emotions, relationships suffer in multiple ways. Emotional connection becomes impossible when one partner refuses to engage emotionally. Trust erodes when true feelings are concealed beneath a veneer of detachment. Communication breaks down as emotional content is dismissed or devalued. Problem-solving is hampered by ignoring the emotional dimensions of issues. Intimacy stalls without mutual emotional vulnerability. The emotional labor in the relationship becomes unbalanced, with one partner carrying the burden. The relationship loses depth and meaning when emotions are consistently suppressed or dismissed. Research in relationship psychology consistently shows that emotional responsiveness, not detachment, predicts relationship satisfaction and longevity. Dr. John Gottman's extensive studies found that emotional attunement and responding to emotional bids for connection are among the strongest predictors of relationship success. The Stoic alternative. Emotional intelligence with rational perspective. A man practicing true Stoicism acknowledges his emotions without being controlled by them, doesn't use logic as a weapon to invalidate women's perspectives, develops emotional intelligence alongside rational thinking, remains open to emotional vulnerability as a path to genuine connection, recognizes that wisdom encompasses both reason and emotion working in harmony, understands that relationships require emotional engagement, not just intellectual exchange, practices what modern psychologists call emotional regulation, rather than emotional suppression. As Seneca advised, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. A Stoic practice is to pause between feeling an emotion and acting on it, not to deny the emotion, but to respond with intention rather than impulse. Practical application. From false rationality to emotional intelligence. Scenario. Your partner expresses hurt feelings about something you said earlier that day. Unstoic response. You're being irrational. What I said was just a fact, and facts don't care about feelings. You need to be more logical about this. Stoic response. I can see that you're hurt by what I said. Help me understand your perspective better. My intention wasn't to cause pain, but your feelings are important to me. Stoic reflection. Later, you might journal about the interaction. What emotions did I feel when my partner expressed hurt? Defensiveness? Guilt? Confusion? Did I respond to those emotions wisely or reactively? Where might I improve in emotional awareness and communication? How can I better integrate reason and emotion in difficult conversations? Stoic practice. The Stoics practiced evening reflection, reviewing their day's actions and responses. A modern application is to regularly review emotional interactions, identifying both strengths and areas for growth in emotional intelligence. Epictetus taught, "Make it your study to confront impressions with these words. You are just an appearance and not at all what you appear to be." This practice of examining our impressions applies equally to emotional reactions, not to dismiss them, but to understand them and respond wisely. 3. Do not neglect self-improvement while expecting her perfection. The unstoic approach, hypocrisy, and double standards. A profound contradiction in many men's approach to relationships is the tendency to hold women to higher standards than themselves. This hypocrisy manifests in various ways: criticizing her appearance while neglecting their own health and grooming, demanding emotional labor and support while offering little in return, expecting forgiveness for their mistakes while holding grudges against hers, requiring complete transparency from her while maintaining their own secrets, criticizing her housekeeping or cooking while contributing minimally to shared responsibilities, expecting her to manage their social calendar, remember important dates, or organize their lives, demanding growth and change from her while remaining static themselves, pointing out her flaws while becoming defensive about feedback regarding their own behavior. This double standard often stems from entitlement, cognitive bias. We judge others on their actions but ourselves on our intentions, or internalized cultural messages about gender roles. Whatever the source, it represents a fundamental failure of Stoic virtue. The Stoic perspective, self-examination, and personal responsibility. The Stoics emphasized constant self-improvement and rigorous self-examination. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journals, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.'" This wasn't pessimism, but a reminder to examine his own reactions and behavior. A core Stoic practice is to focus on improving oneself rather than critiquing others. As Epictetus taught, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would have not mentioned these alone." This self-directed focus stems from the Stoic understanding that the only thing truly under our control is our own character. Marcus Aurelius reminds himself, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." This asymmetry is the opposite of what many men practice in relationships, where they are strict with their partners and tolerant of their own failings. The Stoic virtue of justice dikaiosine demands that we treat others fairly and hold ourselves to at least the same standards we expect from others. Anything less is hypocrisy, which the Stoics viewed as a significant character flaw. The impact on relationships. When men neglect self-improvement while expecting perfection from women, relationships suffer in predictable ways. Resentment builds as the uneven expectations become apparent. Respect diminishes in the face of obvious hypocrisy. Growth stagnates for both partners, one because they aren't expected to improve, the other because they're held to impossible standards. The relationship becomes transactional rather than collaborative. Communication breaks down as feedback becomes one-directional. Power imbalances develop and solidify. The foundation for emotional abuse is established. Research consistently shows that relationship satisfaction correlates strongly with perceived fairness and equity. A 2018 study in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that relationships with more equitable distribution of emotional labor and expectations reported significantly higher satisfaction for both partners. The Stoic alternative: self-directed growth and fair expectations. A man practicing Stoic principles directs his critical eye inward before judging others, takes responsibility for his own growth and development, sets high standards for himself first and foremost, approaches relationships as opportunities for mutual growth, not perfectionism, practices daily self-examination about his contributions to the relationship, focuses on his own virtues and vices rather than his partner's, welcomes feedback as an opportunity for improvement, recognizes that the path to relationship improvement starts with self-improvement. Each evening, Marcus Aurelius would ask himself, "What vice have you cured today? What failing have you resisted? What virtue have you practiced?" This practice of self-reflection is essential for anyone seeking to improve their relationships. Practical application. From hypocrisy to consistent standards. Scenario. You notice that your living space is messy and feel frustrated that your partner hasn't cleaned up. Unstoic response. Criticizing your partner for the mess while ignoring your own contribution to it or your responsibility to help maintain shared spaces. Stoic response. Reflecting on your own habits and contributions to the situation before addressing it, then approaching the issue as a shared responsibility. I've noticed we've both been letting the cleaning slide lately. I'm going to start by tidying my workspace and doing the dishes. Would you like to tackle another area together? Stoic reflection. Later. You might journal about your initial reaction. What expectations do I hold for my partner that I don't hold for myself? Or might I be focusing on her flaws while ignoring my own? What personal improvements would make me a better partner? How can I practice the Stoic virtue of justice by holding myself to consistent standards? Stoic practice. The ancient Stoics practiced moral inventories of their character. A modern application is to regularly assess your own behavior against the standards you expect from your partner, identifying areas where you can improve rather than expecting her to change. As Epictetus advised, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. This willingness to appear imperfect is essential for genuine growth and fair relationship dynamics. Do not make promises without commitment to action. The unstoic approach, empty words and broken commitments. Words without corresponding action create distrust and resentment in relationships. Many men fall into patterns of making promises they don't fulfill, repeatedly promising to change problematic behaviors without actual effort, making commitments in the moment to avoid conflict, with no intention of following through, offering grandiose future promises while neglecting present responsibilities, saying I'll do it later, as a way to indefinitely postpone tasks, making romantic commitments early in relationships that don't align with their actual intentions, agreeing to relationship milestones meeting family, moving in together marriage without genuine commitment, promising emotional availability while remaining emotionally distant, making specific promises about tasks or responsibilities that are subsequently forgotten or ignored. This pattern of empty promises often stems from conflict avoidance, short-term thinking, or a disconnect between words and intention. Some men say what they think women want to hear, without considering whether they truly intend to follow through. Others make sincere promises in the moment, but lack the discipline or commitment to turn words into consistent action. Whatever the cause, this behavior directly contradicts Stoic principles of integrity and responsibility. The Stoic perspective: integrity and faithfulness to commitments. For Stoics, integrity, the alignment of words and deeds, is essential to virtue. Seneca wrote, "Let all your activity be directed to some purpose." Stoicism emphasizes action over empty rhetoric, substance over style. The Stoic sage is characterized by consistency between what they say and what they do. Epictetus taught his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This principle applies particularly to relationships, where actions speak louder than words. Making promises you don't intend to keep is not only disrespectful to your partner, but damages your own character. The Stoic virtue of justice, dikeiosign, includes faithfulness to commitments and treating others fairly. When we make a promise, we create a legitimate expectation in the other person. Breaking that promise without compelling reason is a form of injustice. Musonius Rufus, teacher of Epictetus, emphasized the importance of consistency. We should confine ourselves to saying what is useful, beneficial, and appropriate to the occasion. And we should say these things with understanding and without roughness or insolence, for the latter marks a lack of sympathy and is offensive. The impact on relationships. When men make promises without commitment to action, relationships suffer. Trust erodes as patterns of empty words become apparent. Emotional security diminishes when words can't be relied upon. Planning becomes impossible without dependable commitments. Resentment builds with each broken promise. Communication loses meaning when words are disconnected from action. The burden of follow-through and responsibility becomes unbalanced. The relationship lacks a solid foundation when commitments are unreliable. Research in relationship psychology identifies reliability and trustworthiness as among the most important qualities for relationship satisfaction and longevity. Dr. John Gottman's research found that trust and commitment, both demonstrated through actions, not just words, are two of the pillars of successful relationships. The Stoic alternative: integrity between words and actions. A man guided by Stoic principles speaks deliberately and makes promises thoughtfully, follows through on commitments however small, takes responsibility when he falls short rather than making excuses, values consistency between his words and actions, understand that trust is built through reliable behavior over time, practices the Stoic virtue of temperance by not overcommitting, makes fewer promises but keeps them faithfully. As Marcus Aurelius advised, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The Stoic emphasis on action reminds us that character is revealed through deeds, not words. Practical application: from empty promises to integrity. Scenario: your partner asks if you can take care of an important household task by the weekend. Unstoic response: quickly agreeing without considering your schedule or capabilities, then failing to complete the task and making excuses when confronted. Stoic response: realistically assessing your ability to fulfill the request. I have several deadlines this week, so I want to be honest about what I can commit to. I can start the task on Friday evening and complete it by Sunday afternoon. Does that work for you? Stoic reflection: before making promises, pause to consider. Can I realistically fulfill this commitment? Am I making this promise to please in the moment or with genuine intention to follow through? What obstacles might prevent me from keeping this promise? And how can I address them? What does my past pattern of keeping or breaking commitments reveal about my character? Stoic practice. The Stoics practice pararesis, purposeful choice, making decisions with full awareness and intention. A modern application is to develop a habit of pausing before making commitments to ensure alignment between your words and your actual intentions and capabilities. Epictetus reminds us, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This principle guides us to ensure our promises reflect our true intentions and capabilities. 5. Do not avoid difficult conversations through dishonesty. The unstoic approach: dishonesty as avoidance. Avoiding difficult truths through dishonesty might seem easier in the short term, but it undermines the foundation of trust necessary for any meaningful relationship. This pattern manifests in various ways: hiding significant aspects of one's past, present circumstances, or future intentions, telling white lies to avoid uncomfortable conversations, being dishonest about feelings, including level of commitment or attraction, agreeing with a partner to avoid conflict when actually disagreeing, concealing financial realities, habits, or decisions, pretending to share interests or values that aren't authentic, withholding important information that might influence the relationship, creating elaborate explanations instead of simple truths, ghosting or slowly fading away rather than having difficult ending conversations. This avoidance often stems from conflict aversion, fear of rejection, or the desire to maintain a favorable image. Some men convince themselves that dishonesty is kindness, that hiding truths protects their partner from pain. Others simply lack the courage to face difficult conversations, finding dishonesty an easier path in the moment. Whatever the motivation, this pattern directly contradicts Stoic principles of courage and integrity. The Stoic perspective: virtue through truthfulness. Stoicism emphasizes facing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This applies to communication within relationships. Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. This wisdom applies particularly to difficult conversations, where temporary discomfort leads to deeper understanding. The Stoic virtue of courage, Andrea, isn't just about facing physical dangers, but also having the fortitude to be honest even when it's difficult. As Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. So too is speaking truth in relationships. Marcus Aurelius advised himself, If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This straightforward principle guides Stoic communication, simplicity and truthfulness rather than complexity and deception. Epictetus emphasized that we should be particularly cautious about speech. Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words. This doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations, but rather approaching them with intentionality and honesty rather than excessive or deceptive speech. The impact on relationships. When men avoid difficult conversations through dishonesty, relationships suffer. Trust becomes impossible when truths are hidden or distorted. Intimacy remains superficial without authentic sharing. Important decisions are made on faulty information. Problems compound rather than being addressed early. The relationship develops on a foundation of falsehood. Growth, both individual and relational, stagnates without honest feedback. The burden of maintaining inconsistencies creates ongoing stress. Genuine connection becomes impossible without authenticity. Research consistently shows that honesty is among the most valued traits in relationships. A 2019 study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that perceived partner honesty was one of the strongest predictors of relationship satisfaction, trust, and longevity. The Stoic alternative: courageous honesty with compassion. A man applying Stoic principles approaches difficult conversations with courage and clarity, values honesty even when it's uncomfortable, communicates with respect and compassion, but without deception, recognizes that true intimacy requires transparency, understands that short-term comfort through deception leads to long-term harm, practices the Stoic virtues of courage and wisdom in communication, chooses words carefully, but ensures they reflect truth. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This straightforward principle guides Stoic communication in relationships. Practical application. From dishonesty to truthful communication. Scenario: you realized you don't share your partner's desire for children in the future, but you've been avoiding the topic. Unstoic response: continuing to be vague or even dishonest about your position to avoid conflict or postpone a potential breakup. Stoic response: initiating a thoughtful, compassionate conversation. There's something important we need to discuss. I realize my perspective on having children differs from yours. This isn't easy to talk about, but I respect you too much to be anything but honest. Stoic reflection. Before difficult conversations, consider: what is the most respectful yet honest way to express this truth? Am I avoiding this conversation out of fear? And if so, what virtue can I call upon? How would I want someone to communicate difficult truths to me? What values and virtues should guide this conversation? Stoic practice. The Stoics practice premeditatio malorum, premeditation of difficulties. A modern application is to mentally rehearse difficult conversations, preparing yourself to communicate truth with both courage and compassion. As Epictetus taught, first learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. This principle reminds us to be clear about our own truths before attempting to communicate them to others. 6. Do not mistake jealousy for love or care. The unstoic approach: possessiveness as love. Jealousy and possessiveness are often mistakenly portrayed as signs of love or care. Men might justify controlling or jealous behavior as protection or evidence of their investment in a relationship. This fundamental misunderstanding manifests in various ways. Monitoring a partner's interactions with others, particularly those perceived as potential rivals. Expressing excessive concern about a partner's male friends or colleagues. Viewing normal social interactions as threatening to the relationship. Requiring constant reassurance about a partner's fidelity or commitment. Feeling entitled to access a partner's private communications. Becoming upset when a partner spends time with others or pursues independent interests. Interpreting a partner's autonomy as a lack of love or commitment. Using phrases like, "I only get jealous because I love you so much." Believing that jealousy is an inevitable and healthy part of romantic relationships. This possessive behavior often stems from insecurity, fear of abandonment, or cultural narratives that romanticize jealousy as proof of love. Some men have internalized the toxic belief that loving something means owning it, or that relationships are fundamentally competitive and territorial. The Stoic perspective: love as freedom, not possession. From a Stoic viewpoint, jealousy represents a failure to distinguish between what we can and cannot control. It also reveals an unhealthy attachment to external things, in this case, another person's exclusive attention or affection, rather than focusing on one's own virtue and character. Epictetus would remind us, remember that you ought to behave in life as you would at a banquet. As something is being passed around, it comes to you. Stretch out your hand, take a portion of it politely. It passes on, do not detain it. Or it has not come to you yet. Do not project your desire to meet it, but wait until it comes in front of you. This patient, non-possessive attitude applies well to relationships. The Stoics understood that love is not about possession, but about willing the good of the other. Seneca wrote extensively about friendship, which the Stoics saw as related to love, emphasizing that true friendship involves supporting the other's growth and flourishing, not restricting it. Marcus Aurelius notes, the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. Applied to relationships. This suggests that the best response to fears of infidelity or abandonment is not jealous control, but becoming the best version of yourself, someone worthy of trust and commitment. The Stoic view of love aligns with what modern psychologists call secure attachment, characterized by trust, respect for autonomy, and emotional security rather than anxiety and possessiveness. The impact on relationships. When men mistake jealousy for love, relationships suffer. Trust erodes as surveillance and questioning communicate suspicion. Independence is sacrificed to appease jealousy, leading to resentment. The relationship becomes defined by possession rather than partnership. Both partners experience increased anxiety, one from being controlled, the other from trying to maintain control. Intimacy diminishes in an atmosphere of suspicion. Healthy social connections outside the relationship with her. The foundation for emotional abuse is established. Growth, both individual and relational, stagnates in the absence of freedom. Research consistently shows that relationships characterized by jealousy and possessiveness report lower satisfaction and higher conflict. Dr. Robert Leidy's research found that excessive jealousy is among the most destructive emotions in relationships, creating self-fulfilling prophecies of relationship failure. The Stoic alternative: love that liberates. A man practicing Stoic principles distinguishes between love, which offers freedom, and possession, which restricts it. Recognizes jealousy as a reflection of his own insecurities, not his partner's actions. Focuses on developing trust rather than monitoring behavior. Understand that meaningful relationships are based on choice, not obligation. Works on his own character development rather than controlling his partner. Supports his partner's growth and relationships with others. Practices the Stoic virtue of wisdom by distinguishing between what he can and cannot control. As Seneca wrote, no person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have, and to cheerfully put to good use what they do have. Applied to relationships, this means appreciating what we have without demanding absolute possession. Practical application. From jealousy to trust. Scenario: your partner mentions attending a work event where her ex will also be present. Unstoic response: becoming visibly upset, prohibiting her attendance, demanding detailed accounts of any interactions, or insisting on accompanying her to protect the relationship. Stoic response: acknowledging any discomfort while choosing trust. I appreciate you letting me know. I'll admit that brings up some insecurity for me, but that's my issue to work on, not yours. I trust you and hope you enjoy the event. Stoic reflection: when feeling jealous, pause to examine. What judgment am I making about this situation? What is truly within my control here, and what isn't? What virtue can I practice in response to these feelings? How can I use this as an opportunity for growth rather than control? Stoic practice. The Stoics practiced ascesis, training, to develop virtuous habits. A modern application is to deliberately practice trust when minor jealousies arise, gradually building the capacity to respond to larger triggers with wisdom rather than possessiveness. As Epictetus taught, make it your study to confront impressions with these words: You are just an appearance and not at all what you appear to be. This practice helps us distinguish between situations that truly threaten a relationship and those that merely trigger our insecurities. 7. Do not neglect your perspective by assuming superiority. The unstoic approach, intellectual and experiential arrogance. Some men approach relationships with an assumption of intellectual or experiential superiority. This manifests in various ways: interrupting women or talking over them in conversations, explaining concepts to women who already understand them, mansplaining, dismissing women's perspectives, insights, or expertise, assuming greater knowledge in areas where women have more experience, making unilateral decisions without genuine consultation, speaking with absolute certainty on subjects that are actually matters of perspective, prioritizing male voices and opinions over female ones, responding defensively to feedback or correction from women, assuming women need simple explanations for complex topics, treating women's emotional intelligence as less valuable than logical reasoning. This behavior often stems from unconscious bias, cultural conditioning, or simple arrogance. Some men have internalized the false belief that masculine perspectives are inherently more rational, objective, or valuable. Others may be unaware of how frequently they dismiss or devalue women's contributions. Whatever the source, this pattern directly contradicts Stoic principles of wisdom and justice. The Stoic perspective: intellectual humility and multiple perspectives. Stoicism teaches intellectual humility, the recognition that our understanding is limited and can always be improved through genuinely considering others' perspectives. As Epictetus advised, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. The Stoic virtue of justice dikaiosyne includes treating others with fairness and respect, which means genuinely valuing their perspective. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." This recognition of perspective applies especially to relationships. Marcus Aurelius frequently wrote about the importance of considering multiple viewpoints. Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most resembles the one I am about to criticize? This practice encourages us to approach others' perspectives with humility rather than superiority. The Stoics also recognize that wisdom comes in many forms. Seneca, despite his privileged position, frequently acknowledged learning from people of all social stations. This openness to learning from diverse sources reflects true Stoic wisdom rather than arrogant certainty. The impact on relationships. When men assume intellectual superiority over women, relationships suffer. Communication deteriorates as women's contributions are devalued. Knowledge sharing becomes one-directional rather than mutual. Women's enthusiasm for sharing perspectives diminishes after repeated dismissal. Decision-making suffers from limited perspective. Resentment builds as women feel unheard and undervalued. Intellectual intimacy, the sharing of ideas and perspectives, becomes impossible. The relationship misses the benefits of diverse viewpoints and approaches. Both partners' growth is stunted by the false hierarchy of knowledge. Research in relationship psychology consistently shows that perceived respect for thoughts and opinions ranks among the top factors in relationship satisfaction. Studies by Dr. Julie Gottman found that relationships where partners demonstrate mutual respect for each other's perspectives show significantly higher satisfaction and longevity. The Stoic alternative: genuine intellectual partnership. A man guided by Stoic wisdom approaches conversations with genuine curiosity about his partner's perspective, recognizes that different viewpoints offer valuable insights, listens actively and completely before formulating responses, values his partner's expertise and experience in various domains, understands that true wisdom includes recognizing the limits of one's knowledge, practices the Stoic virtue of justice by treating her perspective with respect, seeks to learn from differences rather than dismiss them. As Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, reportedly said, "The reason why we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth is that we may listen the more and talk the less." This principle is essential for healthy relationship dynamics. Practical application. from assumption of superiority to intellectual partnership. Scenario: your partner expresses an opinion on a political issue that differs from yours. Unstoic response: interrupting her explanation, assuming she hasn't thought deeply about the issue, or dismissively explaining why she's wrong without genuinely considering her perspective. Stoic response: listening fully to understand her reasoning, asking genuine questions about her perspective, and responding thoughtfully. That's a perspective I hadn't fully considered. Can you tell me more about how you came to that conclusion? Stoic reflection: after such conversations, consider, did I truly listen to understand, or was I just waiting to respond? What assumptions did I make about her knowledge or reasoning? What valuable insights might I have missed by not fully considering her perspective? How can I practice greater intellectual humility in our exchanges? Stoic practice. The Stoics practiced role reversal, mentally placing themselves in others' positions. A modern application is to deliberately practice articulating your partner's perspective as fairly and completely as you can before responding to it, ensuring you truly understand before offering your own view. As Epictetus advised, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. This willingness to appear less knowledgeable opens the door to genuine learning and connection. 8. Do not use philosophy as a weapon rather than practice. The unstoic approach: philosophical posturing. Some men use philosophical concepts, including Stoicism itself, as weapons to win arguments rather than as tools for personal growth. This weaponization of philosophy manifests in various ways: quoting philosophers selectively to justify problematic behavior, using philosophical jargon to appear intellectually dominant without applying the principles, invoking concepts like rationality or logic to dismiss emotional responses, claiming to be just being stoic when actually being emotionally unavailable, using philosophical arguments to avoid taking responsibility, treating philosophy as a competitive intellectual exercise rather than a guide for living, applying philosophical standards to others while exempting oneself, using philosophical concepts to shut down rather than open conversation. This behavior often stems from intellectual insecurity, the desire to appear wise without doing the work of wisdom or simple argumentativeness. Some men are attracted to philosophy as an intellectual status symbol rather than a genuine path of personal development. Whatever the motivation, this pattern fundamentally misunderstands the purpose of philosophy, particularly Stoicism. The Stoic perspective: philosophy as lived practice. For the ancient Stoics, philosophy was not an academic exercise, but a way of life, a practice to be applied daily. Epictetus emphasized, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Philosophy should make us better, more virtuous human beings, not more effective at dominating conversations. Musonius Rufus, a Roman Stoic philosopher and teacher of Epictetus, taught that philosophy is meaningless unless it improves our character. He wrote, "We should remember that we do not gather information only in order to know, but in order to act upon our knowledge." The Stoics saw philosophical discourse as valuable only insofar as it led to practical wisdom. As Seneca wrote, "Do you ask what is the proper limit to wealth? It is first to have what is necessary, and second to have what is enough." This practical orientation contrasts sharply with philosophical posturing. Marcus Aurelius, who could easily have used his philosophical education and imperial position to dominate others intellectually, instead wrote private meditations focused on improving himself rather than criticizing others. This embodiment of philosophy, rather than weaponization, represents true Stoic practice. The impact on relationships. When men use philosophy as a weapon rather than a practice, relationships suffer. Conversations become competitions rather than explorations. Partners feel dismissed or belittled by philosophical jargon. Genuine exchange of ideas becomes impossible. The relationship becomes intellectually hierarchical rather than collaborative. Philosophy becomes associated with manipulation rather than wisdom. Growth, both individual and relational, stagnates when philosophy becomes performance. Trust erodes when philosophical concepts aren't matched by behavior. Research in communication psychology shows that perceived intellectual superiority or weaponized expertise significantly damages relationship satisfaction. A 2020 study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that partners who felt intellectually respected reported substantially higher relationship quality than those who experienced intellectual condescension. The Stoic alternative. Philosophy as shared growth. A man truly practicing philosophy uses philosophical insights primarily for self-improvement rather than criticism of others, applies Stoic principles to his own behavior before expecting them from others, shares philosophical perspectives as offerings, not weapons, recognizes that embodying wisdom is more important than quoting it, understands that the purpose of philosophy is to cultivate virtue, not win arguments, practices the Stoic virtues of wisdom and temperance in philosophical discussions, views philosophy as a path for mutual growth rather than dominance. As Seneca advised, philosophy calls for simple living, not for doing penance, and the simple way of life need not be a crude one. Applied to relationships, this means using philosophy to create harmony and understanding, not intellectual dominance. Practical application, from philosophical weapons to philosophical practice. Scenario: you've been studying Stoicism and notice your partner becoming upset about a situation you believe she should handle with more detachment. Unstoic response: you're being completely irrational about this. As Epictetus would say, you're disturbed not by events, but by your judgment about events. You need to be more stoic and stop letting your emotions control you. Stoic response: recognizing that your role is to practice Stoicism yourself, not impose it. I notice I'm also feeling frustrated by this situation. I'm trying to apply some principles I've been learning to manage my own response. Would you be interested in talking about approaches that might help us both? Stoic reflection. After philosophical discussions, consider: did I share philosophical ideas to genuinely help or to appear superior? Am I applying these concepts to my own life consistently? Was my communication aimed at connection or dominance? How can I better embody philosophical wisdom rather than just talking about it? Stoic practice. The Stoics practice philosophical journaling to internalize concepts before sharing them. A modern application is to thoroughly apply philosophical principles to your own behavior for a significant period before attempting to share them with others, ensuring they're grounded in genuine practice rather than theoretical posturing. As Epictetus reminded his students, don't just say you have read books. Show that through them you have learned to think better, to be a more discriminating and reflective person. Books are the training weights of the mind. They are very helpful, but it would be a bad mistake to suppose that one has made progress simply by having internalized their contents. 9. Do not mistake self-interest for virtue. The unstoic approach, moral rationalization. Perhaps the most subtle error is mistaking self-interest for virtue, believing that what is convenient or beneficial for oneself is inherently right or good. This rationalization manifests in various ways: justifying selfish behavior as rational or practical, portraying convenience as principle, using philosophical concepts to excuse avoiding responsibility, redefining moral concepts to align with personal preferences, invoking honesty to justify unnecessary cruelty, claiming independence to avoid commitment or reciprocity, framing personal desires as universal principles, describing self-serving choices as setting boundaries, using authenticity to excuse poor behavior or lack of growth. This pattern often stems from cognitive dissonance, the psychological discomfort that occurs when our actions contradict our self-image as good people. Rather than changing our behavior to align with our values, we redefine our values to match our behavior. Some men develop elaborate moral justifications for behaviors that simply serve their interests at others' expense. These rationalizations might be unconscious, but they reflect a fundamental misalignment between claimed virtues and actual motivations. The Stoic perspective: true virtue versus self-interest. Stoicism distinguishes clearly between genuine virtue and mere self-interest. The Stoics believed that virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance is the only true good, and that actions should be evaluated based on their alignment with these virtues, not their benefit to oneself. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." This recognition that our good is connected to the good of others is central to Stoic ethics, and particularly relevant to relationships. The Stoics understood that virtuous action sometimes requires personal sacrifice. Seneca noted, "Virtue is nothing else than right reason." This right reason often leads us away from mere self-interest toward consideration of a broader good, including the well-being of those we care about. Epictetus taught that we should distinguish between appearances and reality, particularly when it comes to judgments about good and evil. He advised, "Don't be carried away by the impression. Say, 'Impression, wait for me a little. Let me see what you are and what you represent. Let me test you.'" This testing includes examining whether our moral judgments truly align with virtue or merely with self-interest. The impact on relationships. When men mistake self-interest for virtue, relationships suffer. Trust erodes as inconsistencies between claimed principles and actions become apparent. Resentment builds when self-interest is repeatedly prioritized over mutual benefit. Communication loses meaning when moral terms are redefined to suit convenience. Growth stagnates without genuine commitment to values beyond self-interest. The relationship becomes transactional rather than genuinely ethical. Partners feel manipulated by moral language that masks selfish motivations. Integrity, both personal and relational, diminishes over time. Research in relationship psychology consistently shows that perceived fairness and equity significantly impact relationship satisfaction. A 2019 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that relationships where personal sacrifice was balanced and reciprocal reported significantly higher trust and commitment than those characterized by one-sided benefit. The Stoic alternative. Genuine virtue beyond self-interest. A man guided by true Stoic principles distinguishes between actions that feel good and actions that are good, considers the impact of his choices on others, not just himself, recognizes that virtue sometimes requires personal sacrifice, understands that relationship decisions should be guided by wisdom and justice, not mere preference, checks his rationalizations against the core Stoic virtues, practices self-awareness about his motivations and justifications, aligns his behavior with genuine values rather than convenient principles. As Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This introspection helps ensure that our actions align with our highest values rather than our momentary desires. Practical application. From self-interest to genuine virtue. Scenario. You've made plans with your partner, but a more personally appealing opportunity with friends arises. Unstoic response. Canceling on your partner with a rationalization like, "I need to maintain my independence and social connections outside our relationship. It's healthier for both of us if I go out with my friends instead." Stoic response. Recognizing the commitment you've made and the virtue of keeping your word. "I've already committed to our plans together, and I want to honor that commitment. I can see my friends another time." Stoic reflection. When making decisions that affect your relationship, consider, am I rationalizing self-interest as virtue? What would a truly virtuous person do in this situation? How do the Stoic virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance apply here? Am I using moral language to mask self-serving motivations? Stoic practice. The Stoics practiced moral consistency, regularly reviewing their actions against their professed values. A modern application is to periodically audit your relationship decisions, examining whether patterns of convenience disguised as principle have emerged. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This simple principle helps cut through moral rationalizations to find genuine virtue. Conclusion. The Stoic path to better relationships. The Stoic approach to relationships isn't about perfection. It's about progress. As Epictetus reminds us, no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a figure. If you tell me that you desire a fig, answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. So too with relationships and personal growth. The 9 behaviors we've examined represent common pitfalls that undermine connections between men and women. Attempting to control her choices and freedom. Hiding behind false rationality to avoid emotions. Neglecting self-improvement while expecting her perfection. Making promises without commitment to action. Avoiding difficult conversations through dishonesty. Mistaking jealousy for love or care. Neglecting her perspective by assuming superiority. Using philosophy as a weapon rather than a practice. Mistaking self-interest for virtue. By avoiding these behaviors and embracing their Stoic alternatives, men can cultivate relationships characterized by mutual respect and autonomy, emotional intelligence alongside rationality, continuous self-improvement, integrity between words and actions, honest and courageous communication, love that liberates rather than possesses, genuine interest in different perspectives, philosophy as lived practice rather than theory, virtue that transcends mere self-interest. The ancient Stoics knew that living according to nature means recognizing our social nature. We are made for cooperation and connection. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, we were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. By applying Stoic principles to relationships, men can move beyond counterproductive patterns and build connections that honor both themselves and their partners. In doing so, they fulfill the Stoic ideal of living in accordance with nature and virtue, creating relationships that contribute to human flourishing rather than diminishing it. Comprehensive Stoic practices for relationship excellence. Daily practices for Stoic relationship development. Morning preparation, premeditatio. Begin each day by setting your intention to avoid the 9 behaviors discussed and to embody their alternatives. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Take 5 to 10 minutes each morning to visualize challenges. Anticipate relationship situations that might arise today where you could fall into old patterns. Today, I might feel the urge to control when she mentions me to your friend. I might be tempted to hide behind logic when discussing household finances. I might face a situation where honesty requires courage. Set virtuous intentions. For each challenge, decide how you will respond virtuously. I will respect her autonomy and focus on trusting rather than controlling. I will acknowledge both the emotional and rational aspects of our discussion. I will speak truth with compassion, even when difficult. Identify growth areas. Choose one specific area from the 9 behaviors where you will focus particular attention today. Today, I will especially focus on not assuming intellectual superiority in our conversations. My practice today is making sure my promises align with my actions. I will be particularly mindful about not mistaking jealousy for care. Connect with virtues. Remind yourself of the core Stoic virtues and how they apply to your relationship. Wisdom. Making good judgments about what truly matters. Courage. Facing relationship challenges with fortitude. Justice. Treating your partner fairly and respectfully. Temperance. Moderating reactions and exercising self-control. Evening review examine. At day's end, review your behavior in your relationship. As Seneca advised, I will keep constant watch over myself and most usefully, will put each day up for review. Take 10 to 15 minutes each evening to reflect. Behavior assessment. Review specific interactions with your partner through the lens of the 9 behaviors. Did I attempt to control rather than respect freedom? Did I hide behind false rationality to avoid emotional vulnerability? Did I expect more from my partner than for myself? Did my actions align with my promises? Was I honest in difficult moments? Did I mistake jealousy for care? Did I truly listen to and value my partner's perspective? Did I use philosophy as a practice rather than a weapon? Did I choose virtue over mere self-interest? Success recognition. Acknowledge where you successfully applied Stoic principles. When I felt insecure about our friendship, I chose trust over control. I remained emotionally present during our difficult conversation rather than retreating into pure logic. I kept my promise to help with the household task despite being tired. Growth identification. Without self-condemnation, identify where you fell short. I noticed I interrupted her several times during our discussion about future plans. I made an excuse rather than acknowledging I forgot to do something I promised. I prioritized my convenience over fairness in how we spent our weekend. Tomorrow's improvement. Set specific intentions for how you'll improve tomorrow. Tomorrow I will practice letting her finish her thoughts completely before responding. I will set a reminder for promises I make to ensure I follow through. I will consider how decisions affect both of us, not just my preferences. As Epictetus advised, every day and night keep thoughts like these at hand. Write them, read them aloud, talk to yourself and others about them. Weekly practices for deeper integration. Relationship, virtue, review. Once a week, conduct a deeper review of your relationship through the lens of Stoic virtues. Wisdom assessment. Evaluate your judgment in relationship matters. Have I distinguished between what I can and cannot control in our relationship? Have I made good decisions that consider both short and long-term well-being? Have I applied lessons from past relationship experiences? Courage inventory. Consider how you faced relationship challenges. Have I had difficult conversations when necessary rather than avoiding them? Have I been emotionally vulnerable when appropriate? Have I stood by my principles even when inconvenient? Justice examination. Reflect on the fairness of your relationship conduct. Have I been fair in how responsibilities are shared? Have I respected her rights and boundaries? Have I given as much as I've received in our interactions? Temperance evaluation. Assess your self-control and moderation. Have I regulated my emotions appropriately in conflicts? Have I avoided excess in my expectations or demands? Have I maintained balance between relationship needs and other life aspects? Relationship meditation. Once a week, practice a focused meditation on your relationship. Gratitude focus. Spend 5 minutes contemplating what you appreciate about your partner and relationship, recognizing the temporality of all things, as the Stoics taught. Perspective taking. Spend 5 minutes genuinely trying to see recent interactions from your partner's perspective, practicing the Stoic technique of viewing situations from multiple angles. Virtue projection. Spend 5 minutes imagining how the relationship would improve if you perfectly embodied the Stoic virtues in all interactions. Memento mori application. Spend 5 minutes reflecting on the impermanence of life and how this awareness might change how you approach your relationship today. Monthly practices for transformative growth. Deep character assessment. Once a month, conduct a comprehensive review of your character development in the relationship context. Behavior patterns. Identify recurring patterns related to the 9 behaviors we've discussed. I notice I still sometimes use philosophical concepts to win arguments. I've made progress in keeping promises, but still overcommit. Virtue progress. Assess growth in embodying Stoic virtues in your relationship. My emotional regulation has improved during conflicts. I'm more consistently considering her perspective before speaking. Relationship impact. Honestly evaluate how your behavior affects the relationship. My efforts to avoid controlling behavior have led to greater trust. My partner seems more open when I practice genuine listening. Future development. Create specific plans for continued growth. Next month, I will focus particularly on aligning my actions with my promises. I will practice the Stoic technique of role reversal in our next 3 disagreements. Partner feedback integration. If appropriate in your relationship, once a month, solicit feedback. With genuine openness, ask your partner for perspective on your behavior. I'm working on being a better partner. Could you share one area where you think I could improve? Have you noticed any patterns in my behavior that might be undermining our connection? Listen fully. Practice Stoic listening, hearing completely without defensiveness or interruption. Express gratitude. Thank your partner for their honesty, recognizing that feedback is a gift for growth. Integrate insights. Incorporate this feedback into your daily and weekly practices. Practical exercises for ongoing development. The perspective shift. When disagreeing with your partner, practice articulating her perspective as fairly and completely as you can before responding. This Stoic exercise develops understanding and empathy. Voluntary discomfort. Occasionally practice deliberately choosing the less comfortable option in relationship decisions when it's the right thing to do. This strengthens your capacity to choose virtue over convenience. The virtuous response. When facing relationship challenges, ask yourself, what would the wise person do? Focus on bringing wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance to difficult situations. Negative visualization. Periodically imagine losing your relationship to appreciate it more fully in the present. As Epictetus noted, he who is not content with what he has would not be content with what he would like to have. The circle of control. When feeling frustrated in your relationship, draw 3 circles. In the innermost circle, list what you completely control, your judgments, attitudes, responses. In the middle circle, list what you partially influence, the quality of communication, shared decisions. In the outer circle, list what you cannot control, your partner's feelings, choices, or past. Focus your energy on the innermost circle. Role models reflection. Identify men who exemplify healthy relationship behaviors and Stoic virtues. Regularly consider how they might handle situations you face. Philosophical journaling. Maintain a dedicated journal documenting your application of Stoic principles to relationship challenges, recording insights, progress, and areas for growth. Virtue visualization. Regularly visualize yourself responding to relationship situations with perfect Stoic virtue, seeing in detail how you would embody wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. By incorporating these practices into daily life, men can build relationships that reflect true Stoic wisdom rather than its superficial imitation. As Seneca reminded us, the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. In relationships, this means being fully present, virtuous, and authentic in each moment, creating connections based not on control or self-interest, but on mutual growth and respect. The Stoic path to better relationships isn't about perfection, but progress, gradual, consistent movement toward greater wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance in how we relate to those we care about most. Final reflections. The legacy of Stoic relationships. The ancient Stoics understood that we are fundamentally social beings, that our relationships are not peripheral to a good life but central to it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, we were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. By avoiding the 9 unstoic behaviors we've explored and embracing their alternatives, men can create relationships that reflect the highest Stoic ideals, characterized by mutual respect, emotional intelligence, integrity, honesty, liberating love, genuine partnership, applied philosophy, and true virtue. In doing so, they not only enhance their own lives and the lives of their partners, but contribute to a broader culture of healthier relationships. As Seneca noted, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. In relationships especially, this opportunity presents itself daily. The journey towards Stoic relationship excellence is never complete. It is a continual process of growth, reflection, and refinement. But as Epictetus reminds us, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. By setting the intention to be a man who embodies Stoic virtues in his relationships and then taking consistent action toward that goal, transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Remember, as Seneca wisely noted, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. By preparing yourself through Stoic practice, you create the conditions for fortunate relationships, not through chance, but through character. And character, as the Stoics knew, is destiny.